good evening everyone. Welcome to Sociology Analytica. This is Pooja, Prasanna, your Sociology faculty. And yesterday I did tell that, I'm going to give a bit of complicated question, and here it is from the Parsons. That is, Indian society is still in a state of transition, full stop. Using the conception of pattern variable account for the contradictions present in Indian society today. Again, it is for a 10-marker question. So, see, two things are there. One thing, they are telling that Indian society is still in state of transition. They are stating the fact that Indian society is in transition. Transition means, so previous, in some point of time, Indian society was traditional in nature, but now Indian society is moving to modernity. Okay, Indian society is moving to modernity. This is what they have given in the question itself. Okay, you can't change this fact. This is the fact which you have to, based on this fact, further you have to take your answers to. So, using the concept of pattern variable, see, pattern variable here I have not mentioned Parsons. That doesn't mean it is not Parsons question, it is Parsons questions only. Okay, using pattern variable account for the contradictions present in the Indian society. Okay, so technically it is a simple question. Let me tell you, even it's more simple than whatever we talked yesterday. Okay, this is more simple, but then it looks a bit complicated, that's it. So what you have to write? So you have to understand by pointing at one pattern after other pattern, then you should actually explain about how Indian society is contradicting in itself. Okay, this is how, how things are contradicting in Indian society. This is what you should actually write in the content. So your introduction, you can start with what I would suggest you is you start with pattern variables. Instead of telling that about Indian society, you can start with pattern variables. You can give a definition of pattern variables, or simply just define what pattern variable do. Okay, what is pattern variable? It's a dilemma which emanates from the strain in individual's choice between motivational and value orientation. That is, so you want to, there is certain value system in the society, and then there is certain motivational factor in the society, orientation. So as an individual, you will be confused between which one to take. Okay, should you bother about your family? Okay, let's say that you have loved someone and you want to marry that person, but then your family is so inward looking, they don't encourage this, they don't encourage love marriage, they only go for arranged marriage. So now you have to decide whether you have to go ahead with the love marriage, or you should go ahead with the arranged marriage. If you don't want to break your lover's heart, then you'll go with the love marriage. If you don't want to break your parents' heart, then you'll go with the arranged marriage. So this is nothing but pattern variable, like which will you choose? Okay, based on motivational orientation or based on value orientation. This is nothing but pattern variable. So give a simple definition of pattern variable, and then what you can do, you can move on to the Indian context, like what India, or just talk one or two lines about this particular statement. Okay, see, India, when did India started to change? To a greater extent, though there are a lot of different invaders to Indian society, but then they sort of got adjusted to the Indian society. They acclimatized to the Indian society. Okay, there was acculturation also about the Indian society, but then when the Britishers came, there was a drastic change in the Indian society. So pre-British era, that is pre-colonial era, so India was greatly a traditional society. And then when the post-British or post-colonial time period, so they tried to modernize Indian society. Okay, so this is how you can start. The next para, you can actually write about this, that Indian society started to going towards modernization, or it started taking up modernity and Western lifestyle only after the coming up of colonial rulers. But though they actually gave us certain modern lifestyle, modern institutions, modern value system, but then Indian society did not completely become modern. Okay, that is, what does that mean? That is, it is still transitioning. That is, some elements of traditions are still there, some elements of modern are also there. So that is why we call Indian style of modernity as what? Part modernity. India is not complete modern, it is part modern. That means half tradition and half modernity. Okay, so you can write this. So this is over. The first part is over. The second part, using this concept of pattern variable, explain the contradictions present in Indian society. Okay, so now let's move on to the pattern variables. So as we know, this Parsons talk about 5 patterns, isn't it? Effectivity versus affect neutrality, self-oriented, collective orientation, universalism, particularism, and then specificity versus diffusion, and finally ascription versus achievement. So these are the 5 patterns what Parsons talk about. What you have to do is you stick with this, okay, you stick with this 5 pattern, and then for every pattern try to understand, is there any contradiction in the Indian society? Fine. So effectivity versus effective neutral. What does this mean? Effectivity versus effective neutral means, suppose let's say you have to take some decisions, suppose you have to do some work. So whether will you be attached, emotionally attached to the kin, to the group of people or not, or to the group or not? Will you be effective neutral or not? So this is nothing but effectivity and effective neutrality. Okay, so where do we see such things? Is basically, see, in Indian society there is a drastic, like a drastic divide between urban society and rural society. Okay, urban society and rural society, or within rural also we can write, or within urban, or from region to region, something like that. But it's very easy to for you for us to write between urban and rural wise. It is very easy for us to even understand this pattern variable also. See, in urban society, so there is drastically they will be going for effective neutrality. That is, if there is any form of economical transaction, so there will be effective neutral. They don't care who you are from, which kin group you are coming from. So whatever the economic transaction has to be there, they will just do it. Whereas in rural society, mostly they will be having an effectivity. That is what? So if anything has to be done, they will know who you are. Okay, they will know your family, they'll know your background. So based on that, they will be having some sort of attachment. Okay, or so let's say that if you're a doctor, and you have to take care of your so let's say that your patient, so you will be effective neutral. You don't actually you don't consider who is the kin group, okay, which religion he is coming from, which caste group he is coming from. You don't take into all this consideration. So from professional wise also, you can say some profession goes for effective neutrality in Indian society. But then again, in caste panchayat, if you see caste panchayat, especially the president of the caste panchayat, the head of the caste panchayat would be having some effectivity in giving the punishment towards a particular crime. Okay, like that you can write. Moving towards the self-oriented versus collective-oriented. Self-oriented is, in the name itself is there. You only think about yourself. Collective orientation is when you think about society at large. Again, so it is, especially in the recent time period, because of the increase in digital literacy and coming up of the IT sector, more and more of self-orientation life is coming up, isn't it? So people only think about themselves. So with the coming up of cryptocurrency, so many aspects, you can see that they only think about themselves. So whatever the decision, they will only do for themselves. So how can we see self-orientation? Increase in love marriage, okay, increase in divorce rate, okay, increase in migration, increase in old age houses. Okay, understand, all these actually reflects what? All this reflects self-orientation. Next is collective orientation. Collective orientation means doing for the group of, doing for the society at large, or doing for the community at large. This is collective orientation. So again, we still see collective orientation. So there are many aspects where you see collective. See, the constitutional value itself is collectively oriented, isn't it? India is a socialist country. So most of the government schemes, whatever it will be there, it will be having a collective orientation in it. Understand? You can also talk about caste-based organization. So let's say Jat Sabha or Vokkaliga Sangha, etc. All these are what? They will be asking collectively for whom? Collectively for the welfare of that particular caste group. So you can write this example. Okay. Next, going on to the next part, universalism versus particularism. What is universalism? Universalism is some value system which will be applicable to the whole of the society, whereas particularism is basically it is basically traditionally oriented value system which is applicable only for that particular society or that particular community of people. Okay, so universalism. So in Indian society, we do have some form of universalistic value system. For example, we have liberty, equality, okay, fraternity. Understand, all these are what? All these are universalistic value system which is applicable to all the members of the society. And particularism also, see, secularism is also a universalistic value system. And coming to particularism, you can talk about talk about the religious festivals, caste norms which is practiced, etc. So these are actually particularism. Okay, and you can also talk about how because of particularism there is a religious, because of particularism there is a religious indifferences. There is a religious indifferences in Indian society, and because of this religious indifferences, see, whenever Indian society gives importance to universalism, then you will be seeing more of secular outlook. But whenever Indian society will be giving more importance to particularism, then you will be seeing what? More and more of communalistic riots, okay, communal riots. So all this you can just write in 1 or 2 statements, okay. Next, moving on to the next part, it is specificity versus diffuseness. Specificity versus diffuseness. Again, specificity is again what sort of relationship you have, and whether you have a specific relationship or not is nothing but specificity versus diffuseness. So specificity is basically, let's say that you need to have certain transaction, and then the person with whom you are having a transaction, so he will be knowing your caste group, your family background, your caste background, everything. And you see a lot of specificity mostly in the rural area, okay, mostly in the rural area. So everybody in the rural area will know about your address, how many people will be living in your family, each and everything. But then diffuseness you see more and more in the urban area. That is, even if suppose let's say you are buying newspaper, Hindu newspaper from the newspaper vendor, he won't be knowing exactly who you are, what you want, which background you are coming from, nothing. Okay, so this is nothing but diffuseness. So diffuseness is mostly seen in the urban area and specificity is mostly seen in the rural area. Fine. Lastly, ascription versus achievement. This you must be knowing, right? So ascription is something, a status given at birth. Ascription is nothing but status which is given at birth. That is, the moment you are born, some form of status is given to you. A classic example is caste system, or caste status is a classic example of ascription. And achievement is something, despite of your background. So you will achieve, you learn something and then you achieve. So this is nothing but achievement. So in India, we have both, isn't it? So despite your, that is Article 14, you can actually drop the article names here. Article 14, 15, all these things talks about what? Article 14 talks about right to equality. So irrespective of your background, you can, irrespective of background, you can practice any profession you want to practice, okay. And also there is a ban on untouchability, and also irrespective of your background, you can stand for election, okay. You can stand for election, you can win the election, understand. So these are nothing but achievement variable. Next, coming to ascription, that is caste system. So do we still see caste based ascriptive value system in Indian society? Yes, we do. I mean, yeah, Indian government and constitution is trying very hard for ascriptive system to go away, but then we do see some form of ascription even till today also. You can give example of Safai Karma, that is Dalits. Most of Dalits are actually what? Safai Karmacharis. Okay, and then you can also write most of the Brahmins, they end up being the priestly, I mean not all the Brahmins, all the priestly class, whosoever with the priestly class will be there, mostly they are Brahmins only. Okay, even till today, most of though after 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, irrespective of that, okay, so in most of the caste, we still have caste panchayat, or you can also write khap panchayat, okay, where ascription is still seen. Understand? Did you understand this? So basically for this particular question, so for all the patterns, whatever the 5 patterns what Parsons talk about, for this you just have to think from the Indian context, okay. In Indian context, how can we understand this from the Indian context, and just give examples, okay, as many examples, not too many, at least 1 or 2 examples for each pattern. If you give, then it is more than sufficient. Understood? So this is actually an easy question. Only thing is you have to little bit think calmly and then broader manner that, okay, how should I understand this from the Indian context? Okay, did you understand this question? And tomorrow I'm gonna start with Merton. Okay, so Merton again, I'll be handling 2 questions of Merton and then subsequently 2 questions of Mead. Okay, in case if you have any doubt, please drop your queries in the comment section. Fine, thank you all so much. I'll see you all tomorrow.